second time that I'm aware of that I have been in this room. Some 30 plus years ago, while I was serving the church at Jaffrey Center, I don't remember why, but I was asked to officiate for a wedding in here, and I did that. And I was saying to some folks this morning, I'll always remember it because every church I had served up until then had a center aisle. And I had to figure out how we were going to do it here with the split aisles and all. And so it came back very vividly as a memory. And I'm sorry, you heard from David that I'm going to be back a couple of different Sundays, so you're going to have to deal with me again. I'm sorry for that. But what you're hearing this morning is the sermon that I had been reworking for about the last 6 years since I retired, because I kind of was given a retirement vocation. And I'm going to tell you what that was right up front, so I can lose you completely and you can go back to sleep. That vocation was to share the message of divine mercy with Protestants. If you have Catholic friends, you may have heard of divine mercy, but otherwise you probably haven't. And so that's what the message is going to be about this morning. Next week, however, I'm going to be doing a completely different message that is really targeted to you folks who are in the search process. Now, I'm a member at the Hopkinton Church, and we also are in a search process. Our minister of 20-something years decided it was time to move on about this time last year, leaving us all crestfallen and grieving and everything else. And we've been recovering, and we have an interim and all of that. So I can really relate to some of what you're going through. Well, about 5 years ago, I met a UCC colleague, I'd never known him before, by the name of Jeff McDonald. Jeff McDonald is actually currently serving the church in Kensington, New Hampshire. But about 2 years ago, Jeff released a book called Part-Time is Plenty. And it was the result of research that he'd been supported in by Bangor Seminary Foundation. And he found these incredible churches all over the country, mainline churches like us, that were exceptionally vital with less than full-time clergy. And I was asked to preach at West Congregational in Concord earlier this summer. They are in the search process too. And like you folks, they, for the first time, are going to be looking for someone not full-time. And so, luck would have it, I've got next week's message already written to share with you folks. And I hopefully, since you know the topic, maybe you'd invite some other folks along that might enjoy hearing it at this time. It's a very positive outcome. So I want to make sure that I tell you that right from the get-go. So, this morning, how did I get started on this journey with divine mercy? Well, see if you can relate to this reality at all in your life. Sometimes I find it hard to recall what the reason was that originally got me into a situation that ultimately changed my whole life. Sometimes, though, it's easy to remember, like when a trustee at the Pembroke Church and I scoped out a fundraising idea by attending the Strawberry Festival at the Hooksett Church in June of 2009. I don't know whether you've ever been to this kind of a strawberry festival, but ushers seat you at tables, and the trustee and I were seated opposite a woman and her elderly parents. Jump ahead some 7 years, and that woman and I were married on April 23rd, 2016. And I thought I was scoping out a fundraising idea for the church. Well, see if you can relate to those events that turn out quite differently than you could ever have imagined. Back about 18 years ago, my very best friend Mike, known him since junior high, was visiting from Florida. And we decided to take a road trip out to Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where I'd actually never been before, to visit the Shrine of the Divine Mercy. Well, why did we do that? Well, I actually don't have a clue. Though Mike, who is Catholic, thinks it probably was his idea. And since then, Mike and I have returned to the shrine. Up until the COVID, we used to go about every other year or so, making a kind of pilgrimage and staying overnight in their guest house. But then, the day after, this is so suspenseful, I can just see you right on the edge of your seats here. Then, the day after my retirement party, so Monday, November 2nd, 2015, All Souls Day, Mike and I went out again, and that visit changed both of our lives. But more on that in a moment. So, I imagine that there have been instances in your lives where you did something or began something, visited somewhere that began innocently enough, and yet have served to transform your life as well. Back in 2016, at a Maundy Thursday service at the Hopkinton Church, where I now am a member, the Holy Spirit brought to mind an incident that I'd totally forgotten about. While sitting with the adult choir at a Maundy Thursday service during my senior year of high school, I felt moved to give my life to Christ. Now, I was already confirmed at that point, and I was active in the youth group and obviously in the choir, but that night, I dedicated my life anew and more fully to Christ. Did I have a clue that what that little moment would lead to would be a 43-year career in parish ministry, serving God, Christ, and the Spirit? I had no idea. Matter of fact, as I told you, I'd even forgotten about it. So I imagine you've had some sort of experience, perhaps of God, Spirit, Christ, a spirit of the holy. Can you recall it? It may have been subtle or profound. My mother was one to always say when we went on a trip and went on a mountain pass and we'd get near the summit, "It's God's country." And we'd all sort of go, ooh and ah, and have tingles down our back. So, have you had an experience like that? Maybe it was in nature. Maybe it was in church. Or on a retreat. Could have even been at work or at home. It might have been alone. Might have been with others. At some deep